The Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, step right up and slap down your money and wait to see the wonders of the dark ride. Visit our Midway, see the man with a silver face. Get your future told by the dreamer. See the robot overlord that walks like a man. I'm telling you, you can't get this kind of entertainment just anywhere, only at the Major Spoilers Carnival of Nudity, the podcast of champions, the greatest show on some planet, statistically speaking, and it's on the air.
Welcome to issue 1080 episodes of the Major Spoilers podcast. Thank you so much for downloading and checking us out this week. No Rodrigo this week. Hey, have I told you about we need to raise money via our Patreon page so that we can keep everyone around? Now's the time to do it. Patreon.com/Major Spoilers. Hopefully Rodrigo's doing well and he will be back next week. We'll be talking about the Dark Red Volume 2 a little bit later, but first we need to, Matthew, do some reviews of new comic books.
Some comic book reviews, and boy, have I got a comic book.
Oh, yeah, it's out last week from DC Comics.
Yep, out last week, Suicide Squad Dream Team number 4 of 4. All of a sudden, the cover indicates that this is a countdown to Absolute Power, which I believe is the next big crossover. But the whole premise of Dream Team, so Suicide Squad, Dream Team, Countdown to Absolute Power movie film for theaters, is that Dreamer, a character who originated on the Supergirl TV show, has been transliterated into the DC universe and has been grabbed by Amanda Waller to lead an iteration of her Suicide Squad. It's interesting, though, because the Suicide Squad team that she's leading is the Clock King, Harley Quinn, Deadeye, who is sort of he's not Deadshot, but he might as well be Deadshot. He's like Deadshot with a cape. Black Alice, who can magically steal your powers, and Bizarro. So if you look at those characters, you've kind of got an evil Justice League on your hands. And so when this issue opens with Dreamer in chains and being held with her power stolen by Black Alice because she dared to question Amanda Waller's leadership, you kind of go, oh, right, these guys are the villains. They're the baddies. It's that little gif with the guy. But fortunately, Dreamer's powers are not magical, or not 100% magical. So Black Alice can't actually steal them. She can just sort of borrow bits and pieces of them. And then Dreamer realizes what's actually happening and sees the future of the DC universe, which is a future under the boot of Amanda Waller. Basically, Amanda Waller has had enough with the metahumans and their MFing snakes on their MFing planes, whatever it is. And she has now decided that you're not going to stop these guys by pretending to be a good guy. You're not going to be able to save the world by being a Boy Scout. Now, you may think that previous Suicide Squad iterations where they stick a bomb in your head and you listen to her or your head explodes were that point. That is not the case. The ante is very strongly upped in this issue in a really horrifying way that I don't want to necessarily spoiler for you. But I will say this, if, like me, you do not want to see Amanda Waller become the biggest villain in the DC universe, much as Max Lord did about 10 years ago, maybe you don't want to read Absolute Power. That said, this is a pretty solid story, written by Nicole Maines, who is in fact the actress who plays Dreamer on television. It's really well put together. The balance of the action to the moments of emotion and the hardcore moments of, oh my God, something bad is going to happen are there. Stephen often complains on one of our other podcasts about Dream Girl, who, by the way, is the 30th century.
It's me, Dream Girl. How are you?
The 30th century descendant.
I'm seeing something in my head right now. Oh, I see
Dreamer's powers
very angry man.
better but
He
also
just
worse.
says he hates my voice. Why is it? Why do you hate my voice?
So yeah, that's a thing that he does.
See, I knew it was real. So my dreams came true again.
Anyway, Stephen
Thanks,
was
Dream
very
Girl.
impressed by
You're
the
welcome,
movie
Shug.
Poltergeist in 1982 and really wanted to grow up to be Tangina. But
Nope, those are two different people. Tangina
right,
is like,
right.
this house is clean.
It's the exact same voice.
No, it's not. See, she's like, she's over on the other side. See, there's more nasal in that. And Dream Girl is like, hey, Shug, why don't you come over here and let me tell your future, right? Yeah, see, this is totally different characters.
Dreamer's powers work better within
what
this
does she
story.
sound like?
Dreamer, she sounds like,
what
hello,
does she look like?
I am the Dreamer. Dreamer?
Yeah.
She is.
Do they actually literally
5'7"?
Did they literally adapt the actress from the TV show into this? So I don't know the character from the TV show. So I don't know if she's a person of color or if, what her,
No, she is a woman in her mid-20s. She has kind of dark hair and dark eyes. She's kind of a tall, thin woman. If you ever saw Supergirl, I don't think you would look at this and say that it is. It's not like actually a reference to Nicole's face.
No. But if it's somebody with dark hair, dark eyes, as opposed to, hey, we're going to take this character and we're going to make her Asian, and we're going to, make her.
This is
7 foot tall.
This is visually the same character. Wears her hair in a ponytail, kicks things, has a lot of fun with her kicky powers, and she actually has the ability to manipulate dream stuff, like a Green Lantern ring in the comics, or in the television show, rather. I don't know if she has that in the comics. She does, it's not in this issue, but she does have a moment where she kicks down a door and threatens to throw Amanda Waller to her death, which I think, every hero needs that. But Task Force X has now become Task Force VII, which seems like they're going down the scale instead of up. I don't know. Not bad. Amanda Waller in this is a villain. She is absolutely a villain. So if Amanda Waller as a villain is not your jam, I think that's a good reason to avoid this. If the rest of this sounds cool, 3.5 slices of meatloaf. Very, very interesting art. Eddy Barrows does the primary portion of the art. I'm not sure how the breakdown happens, but it's listed as Eddy Barrows, and I kind of recognize the pencils, and also Eber Ferreira. So whether they are switching off, one is penciling, one is inking, whether it's a collaboration like Gurihiro, I don't know. But I do know that I like the art, I like the story, and knowing who Dreamer is from the Supergirl show, and, I can still kind of feel the fingerprints of that character here within the modern DC universe, the post everything DC universe, where all the previous stories actually have happened again. So the New 52 has been wound back, but also things are confusing. I don't know. It's all Dr. Manhattan's fault. But 3.5 slices of meatloaf for Dream Team, Suicide Squad Dream Team number 4. I'm going to be looking at Absolute Power. Whether or not I enjoy Absolute Power or not, I'll probably tell you about it here on the show.
There you go. All right. This week, I'm taking a look at another G.I. Joe miniseries from Skybound Entertainment. It's Destro, number 1. These are in the early days before Cobra comes out as the big menace that it is, although it is slowly building power, as we saw in the Cobra Commander series, and we've kind of gotten hints of it in the Scarlet series that's currently going on as well. One thing, because my G.I. Joe knowledge comes from the TV show, not from the toys or from the comic books or anything like that. And it's probably because the two people that voiced Destro in the show never used Scottish accents. I didn't know that Destro was of Scottish descent.
He's a Scottish laird.
Yeah, he's laird of the Castle Destro. He's James McCullen Destro the 14th.
Name.
Yeah, I know, but it's just now when I find that out, all I can think of is a thick Scottish accent. on Destro every time he's talking. And the why they don't, and they don't when they're writing the dialogue. This is written by Dan Waters with art by Andrei Bressan or Bressan. They don't lean into that little bit, like putting a little, making things sound like or written like they sound. They don't do that in the piece. And I was kind of expecting, I was expecting a little bit of that in here as soon as I find him going to his Scottish Highlands and addressing the castle of his ancestors and everything. But then we quickly, get into this. This is something that I wasn't expecting either, in that we know that Destro is basically the arms supplier for Cobra and for other people in the G.I. Joe universe. But I was really not going into this series expecting it to be, I'm trying to think of something. It is basically a bunch of mercenaries and arms dealers all fighting amongst themselves. Like Destro has Energon. He's been given it by Cobra, and he used that to build up his red or his what is the name of his things? The Grenadiers, the Crimson Guard is
Grenadiers.
Yeah, he's using that to build up his bats and the Grenadiers. And he sends them on a mission to overthrow a small government so that he can be in power there through puppet presidents, etc. And that makes Cobra Commander very angry because he's like, you shouldn't be using these weapons in public. Now everyone's going to know about us. And Destro's like, just settle down. No one's going to know about this. And oh, by the way, I'm also throwing a giant arms convention here on this new country that I have just taken over. And I'm inviting all the high-tech mercenaries and arms dealers in the world here to buy and sell and show off their latest wares. And what he's really doing is he's trying to figure out if there's anyone else that has Energon or if it's just him, which gives him, a great advantage. Meanwhile, Tomax and Zomat are doing their own thing in another part of the world, throwing over another government. And very quickly, you start to see all these little factions starting to be introduced and identified in this comic book. And you can really tell where they're starting to draw sides and when and if they're actually going to go to war with one another. And the answer may come at the very end because somebody, Cobra, attacks the convention and blows up a lot of these people. So Destro is not happy about the retaliation that has happened because it shows him as being weak. And I think that's going to make a lot of things going on in the rest of this miniseries very, very interesting. How are, Destro essentially just says to Cobra Commander, listen, I do work for you, but you do not control me. And he turns off this monitor communication that he's having, probably a Zoom meeting with Cobra Commander. And Cobra Commander just does not like the way Destro is just like, you don't own me kind of attitude. And I really like, I don't like Destro. I really like the conflict that is being set up between the Crimson Twins, between Mars Industries, which is what Destro controls, between Cobra, and there's a woman who has her own organization as well that is introduced into here.
The Baroness, perhaps.
She's not addressed that way in this, and she does not look anything like the Baroness. She is somebody of, I think, American descent or something. So it's very interesting to see this side of the story. We saw the weird journey that Cobra Commander had to take in the Cobra Commander series, and we've seen Duke and we've seen Scarlet going on their adventures before they are brought in to be part of G.I. Joe. So seeing this other big name of the G.I. Joe universe come into this and seeing his side of the story, I think is fascinating just from that. Do I think Destro is somebody that you should look up to? No, he should be booed and hissed every time that he appears on page. And I think the hardest thing that going for the art is, what do you do with somebody who has a big chrome head? And yes. So they generally, it's, shades of white and blue. You're not seeing reflections in it, that kind of stuff. I also have the question of, how does his mouth move if he's wearing, this metal headgear? Same reason with Iron Man, etc. But it's an enjoyable read. I really got a lot of enjoyment out of seeing these bad people being bad to one another. I enjoy seeing dictators overthrown by the bad guys. It's very engaging from that. And so I'm giving it 4.5 slices of meatloaf for this book. Again, it's out this week from Skybound Entertainment. It's $4.99. The Suicide Squad that Matthew reviewed is $3.99. Give it a couple of weeks if you don't want to get on it right away, and either wait for the trade, because I believe this is a 4-issue miniseries like the rest are. So this will be probably collected in trade by the end of the year, or in early next year, or just wait and see if the price goes down if you don't mind buying it digitally. But I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. So that is those are the 2 reviews that we have this week. If you would like to pick up either one of these, we do have a link in the show notes that will take you to our Amazon affiliate link. It doesn't cost you anything extra if you decide to buy through the Amazon affiliate link, or really anything through our Amazon affiliate link. But I think in the case of like Destro or Suicide Squad, I think we get a nickel out of each one of those purchases. So, if like 100 of you go out and buy, these comic books through our links, then maybe we can afford a comic book next week to read. So there you go. Keep that in mind. There you go. Thank you, everyone who supports the show and all the things that we do in the Major Spoilers Podcast Network. This week, Matthew, we are sending out thanks to Luke, who became a new silver level member this week.
Trust your feelings, Luke.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, what does Luke get when he becomes a silver level member? Well, he already has access to all of the Major Spoilers Podcast pre-shows that we do. And we do up to 4 of those a month when we are all together. You're not going to find that stuff anywhere else. If you want to sign up with Luke and become a silver member, you also get access to Critical Hit a week early before everyone else, and access to a bunch of other stuff. If you decide to jump up to the gold level, a mere $10 a month, $10 for all the shows that we do, and we're doing about 6 shows right now, then you can get all that for like $5-10 a month. If you go for the $10 a month one, which is really inexpensive, you get up to 8 bonus episodes each month. Plus, you get a inside look of what's going on with our Critical Hit game when you check out our GM Roundtable. You also get access to the VIP live chat, which is a monthly conversation that I have with our patrons, where I tell them what's going on behind the scenes, how the company is doing, that kind of stuff. You can get that when you sign up today. All that information can be found right now over at patreon.com/major spoilers. We are certainly waiting to give you a shout out right here on the show. Again, all you need to do is sign up. A mere $5 a month. Heck, you can do $2 a month if you want, but $5 a month, you could pay a year in advance. What is that? That's like less than $26.
Yeah.
If you want to sign up for $2 for the entire year, we will welcome that. Find out more, patreon.com/major spoilers. Okay, Matthew, we are into, because you requested it. You wanted us to
Because I demanded it.
No, you requested it. And I said, okay. We are taking a look at Dark Ride Volume 2. This is Joshua Williamson, the same artist as Destro, Andrei Bressan, and Andreano Lucas. They are back to spin more cruel and wicked tales of Devil Land and its inhabitants. So what'd you think of this one? Because this one last issue or last volume, we got kind of a glimpse of something's not right at Devil Land. We also kind of figured that Mr. Dante, who is the Disney analog into this,
Mr. Dante,
probably killed his wife in a deal with the devil in order to become rich and famous. And then the devil came a calling and wanted his pound of flesh. And instead of taking his newborn children, he's lawyered his way out to keep his second wife somewhat alive and the kids alive as well. And in this volume, we find out more about that, and we find out more, a little bit more about some of the wickedness that goes on in Devil Land. And I thought this volume, honestly, Matthew, was a lot more gruesome than the first volume.
It was, and I feel like it was a less focused, if that
really
makes any sense. Yeah, because part of the reason that I was interested was that at the end of that first arc, we were kind of at a point where, it seems like Halloween was more than she seemed.
Yeah, that's one of that's Dante's daughter.
Yeah, Halloween and her brother Samhain, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So we could call him Samhain if when they use his full name, but a lot of times a lot of people will say, instead of Richard, you'll say Dick. And so I think it's maybe that way, where if they don't want to call him Samhain, they will say Sam.
Right. But I also get to a point where this, and again, I did not reread the first volume before I jumped right into this one. This doesn't seem to pick up from that the way that I thought it was going to, especially given, the big cover with a flaming satanic looking Halloween on the cover. So we kind of cut into that first issue story being really more of a kind of a flashback sort of thing. And I really loved that little short opening chapter of the man and his children trying to get in to Devilland.
Mm-hmm.
But then we kind of went in directions that, again, there is no right, there is no wrong. It's a creative decision by the creators. It just didn't go where I felt like that first arc was
where did you want
hinting.
Where did you want it to go, or what were you expecting it to go?
I wasn't necessarily expecting anything, but it doesn't really delve into, it doesn't go forward from the point where we find out that maybe Halloween is more evil than we think. We do get we get very important flashback information, which is nice. And we do see the twins' mother, extensive twins' mother, in nice black and white flashback sequences, except for the bright red blood. But then we also end up in sort of a side story where one of the I don't know, is he a scientist?
He's the head custodian.
He's head custodian. Yeah, and he's like, I don't know, he's got a little whole thing going on to her, but rather than kind of have it seem like, oh, maybe Halloween is more evil than she is, we do get into the point where once that kind of comes around, all of a sudden Dad is back in the mix. And I swear, coming out of that first arc, I thought Dad was dead.
No, he was definitely not dead in the first volume. We knew he was still alive because he was trying to get his kids to work together to figure out how they were going to take the park forward. And then he was going to either award it to one of them or do that. But obviously Sam is the failure here, but Halloween is certainly moving ahead with a lot of her stuff, even though he's still very much disappointed in her. But I kind of like this volume because it is feeding us a lot of backstory about the history of the park and some of the characters that are involved in the park, and how, I forget what the girl's name is, not Halloween, but the girl whose brother, quote unquote, committed suicide in the park. Mm-hmm. She's around and is trying to figure out what's going on. And with her interactions with Sam, he is quickly discovering that this park ain't right, even though he should have known all this stuff from being raised for 20 years in and around the park. He should have known something isn't right. But now he's thinking that, yeah, this is a little bit more than just jump scares. This is actual demon stuff. And with his daughter cutting herself last issue or last volume, and now having to deal with the fallout from that, and realizing that somebody is coming for a pound of flesh. And if it's not going to be Sam or Halloween, it might as well be Sam's daughter. That amps those stakes up a lot. But yeah, you're right. We don't get a lot of forward motion in the story. We do get these little bits and pieces, like the groundskeeper, everybody that's at this park is disturbed in some way. What's his name? Hader, the head of security, is just a horrible menace. He's just a bully. He's wants to curb stomp you, kind of guy. Nobody is good. And so when we get into that bit about the custodial trash land or whatever it is underneath the park, that's when things get really weird and creepy and disturbing. And it does feel like we are, and I would wonder, I'm going to have to go and read up on this series some more, because it wouldn't surprise me if, as these issues are progressing, if Williamson is not taking a theme from horror of the times and injecting it into the story, like the volume where they are in trash land. That's definitely starting to fall into the weird gore porn type stuff between Pinhead and House of 1,000 Corpses. We're right into that realm by the time I think we get to Garbage Land with that chapter. And so I'm interested to see if he's starting to use each chapter as a way to say, hey, here's how horror now next evolves and that kind of stuff. Because the ride in which Mr. Dante meets his second wife is the Lovecraft Tunnel of Love, right? So they're even dealing with those horror themes in here. So I find that very interesting. I think we get just enough. I think we get just enough story progression where we start to sense that Sam is the only one that's going to be able to save his daughter when the evil, what are they called? Mascots take his daughter. I think we get enough movement there, but I was really more interested in the why. How did this come about? I almost expected the devil to actually make an appearance and spell everything out for everybody. But I think that's probably in volume 3. What you think? Matthew's very quiet. I think he's fallen asleep. This is ground control to Matthew-san.
Can you hear me now?
You've really made the grade. Yeah, go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I wasn't muted. I'm not sure what happened. Where the last volume ended up, as I recall, was someone having his head ground to paste.
Yep. That was the YouTube guy.
The YouTube guy. And Danny Devil was there with the other guys, and it's like, oh yeah, terrible, terrible things are about to happen. And it kind of felt like we were about to see the veil ripped aside and go into like maybe a new era. And that really didn't happen here. And that, again, no problem with that. Not my story. But I also kind of feel like if I were reading this month over month, and usually I don't say this, I feel like this might have been more satisfying a chapter at a time, if that makes sense.
Really?
Because,
okay.
Yeah, because I read the first volume was what, 4 issues? The first 4 issues. We get into that point where we're like, oh, okay, terrible things are happening. Sam's daughter may actually be possessed, and the YouTuber gets crunched to bits and killed and smashed, and his face is dead. And it's like, okay, Halloween seems to be working in concert with the evil mascots, and the evil things are going on, and she's definitely in on all of the terrible terribles. But then as we get into that next chapter, that kind of doesn't seem to be there. So it feels like it's like a simmering back burner plot, an old school Marvel secondary plot, which is great. Normally I love that. But I also did not realize that this is chapter 2 of 3. In my head, I was thinking this is going to be chapter 2, which is going to close up the series. And so, yeah, maybe it is that it's a variation on sometimes I have that 3rd issue syndrome where you have 4 issues and the first one introduces everything and the second one is a da, 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 and it ends with the hero in terrible peril. And then the 3rd issue is kind of like, I got to do something because the next issue ends it all. And sometimes you do get that sort of a lacuna or some doldrums in there, but you do end this on a really strong note. And we do find, some new things for Sam to be afraid of, to maybe Sam actually is going to be the one who survives.
Maybe. I mean, maybe they are going to do a twist on the final girl, but we do have the sister running around, not Halloween, but the other kid's sister running around. I forget what her name is. I think it starts with a B or something. But we may get a final girl there. We may see it all sucked down into the earth, a la Poltergeist style. But yeah, I didn't mind the fact that there wasn't a lot of forward momentum, but I think we're starting to see why things were allowed to go as far as they were through the flashbacks, and people are starting to put the things together. I think this is 12 issues. Maybe it's 13 issues total. It'd be funny if it was 13 issues. That would be a little bit appropriate. And so the final volume, I think, comes out very soon. Dark Ride Volume 3 comes out, July 3rd?
Cool.
It's like coming up really quick.
Dark Ride
collects issues 9 through 12.
12 came out May of 2024.
Yep. So that'll come out in July. So you can get all 3 of these. I am totally okay with wherever this book goes because I didn't have any expectations I didn't have any expectations going into this volume, except that I expected it to get weirder and more disturbing. And it did get weirder and more disturbing. You know, when you got a guy who's literally licking a trash mannequin of Sam's mother, you know, you're getting into some gross territory there. And it's kind of what I expected, but I didn't find anything overly shocking, overly disturbing, or out of line with the story that the creators are trying to tell here. And so it's fine. I do want to see how it ends, because I do want to see, you know, Sam walk away with his kid and get back with his wife and all that stuff. But if it all ends up with Sam strapped down to a gurney and his head's being sawed open so his brain can be put in a jar, I'd be okay with that too. Because again, I don't really have expectations on where this goes, or just my expectations are very low. So when you cross that low hurdle, it's kind of a success for me, I guess.
Yeah. I still generally like this. I mean, definitely most of the feedback I would have for this, if I'm just saying on the strength of the art, on the strength of the characterization and the writing, absolutely positive. This is definitely a book that I would recommend that people check out. But I also remember coming away from chapter 1 with kind of a terrified rush right out in a buying frenzy sort of feeling.
Okay.
And I had hoped that this would be another volume that made me feel like that, because literally in that episode, or at the end of that episode, I was like, man, we definitely need to look at volume 2, which is why we're here. You know, I asked politely, and you deigned.
I was like, you may kiss the ring, and we can review the book.
Yeah, you know, those jokes are funnier when they're not half true. But yeah,
no, people heard me say yes, we could do it on the show. So there's nothing there.
Yeah,
we are looking at Dark Red Volume 3 in September.
Cool.
So we will conclude this series within a couple of months.
Yeah.
So you know, you've got that going for you. Yeah, we haven't done. We didn't pick a series to. Well, I guess we did that. Texas Blood was our book that we're doing, or the series that we're doing throughout this year. But to get another series in, like Dark Ride, in over a couple of episodes, that works very well for me, at least. We'll see some old favorites come back for the rest of this year. We got Atomic Robo coming up at the end of the year, as always, with more asterisks and probably some no Tintin. I don't think we have any Tintin coming up this year, but there you go.
We should do some Tintin. We should do Tintin the movie.
Problem is that Tintin the movie. Now Tintin the movie is really, really good. That is a movie that I mean, it's an adaptation of two of the books that we've already reviewed on the show,
right?
And I watched it like a year ago, and it still holds up really, really well. And it's kind of upsetting that the movie didn't do good enough for Spielberg to come back, Spielberg and whoever else was doing it, to come back for a second movie on that, because it's a good adventure. It's a good adventure animated movie, but maybe people aren't into animation. People seem to be into horror comics, because the more and more I look at solicitations, I mean, we've got Blood Hunt going on right now. We've got, there's some zombie thing that's coming up from another publisher. We are really diving into a lot more horror in comics these days than what we've seen in the past. Well, certainly the return of EC Comics over at Oni Press. We're seeing a lot more of that. And I wonder what your thoughts are on seeing more horror and grotesque horror becoming a thing in comics. Is this just another cyclical trend? Are we moments away from cowboys becoming the next big thing, and every publisher's got a cowboy comic?
God, I hope not.
I mean, we had for a while a lot of cowboy / Western comics showing up. Texas Blood is one. Certainly we had Sixth Gun. We had, what was that series that took place in like Arkansas, was very much a noir Western thing. So we did have a little small cowboy bump. Yeah. Scalped. Right. Yeah. What was the Manifest Destiny was kind of a Western kind of thing in there. So we have had a little bump of cowboy comics, but what's the deal with a lot of horror comics making their appearance and climbing the charts these days?
I feel like horror stories really do appeal in times of uncertainty and social upheaval. And I feel like you do have, like if you look at the Cold War, the beginning of the Cold War, there's a lot of really good horror that's actually all about the fear of Russia. And I feel like we're at a point where once again, especially the United States is kind of going, oh my God, what's the next 10 years going to look like? And you do see when things start getting really happy that maybe those horror things slide off, but I don't think they'll ever completely go away. That
Oh, no, no,
said,
no, no, no.
I'm totally down for like, I am fine with like big, gross, bloody horror comics as long as it's being done in the service of some sort of story, some sort of whether it's just boom, here's some horrifying, gross thing, or like the EC story where a baseball player is a terrible person and ends up accidentally making several people's lives miserable and a couple of people die because of him, so they chop him up and they line the bases with his intestines and his face becomes home plate and they throw his brain like a baseball, and I'm just like, that's gross, but that's also an entertaining kind of gross and maybe a little bit of a Twilight Zone sort of, did he deserve this gross ending question?
I'm gonna be the same way that you were with our discussion in the pre-show about Dan Harmon.
Yeah.
In that case, I think we're on opposite sides of those two discussions and viewpoints. I think So
like
honest, so I've said before, and there's certainly a lot of goriness in Dark Ride Volume 2 and really in Volume 1 as well. And it doesn't go to the point where I find it overly disturbing. Now,
right.
My youngest son, my youngest son decided to blow through both seasons of Invincible in the last couple of days.
Oh,
yeah, just on his own, and I'm like fine with it because he knows the difference. I mean, he watches like some very disturbing anime too. So, comparatively, Invincible is relatively tame, but I see some of the stuff, especially with the fight between Dick and Omni-Man. That does get, in some cases, I turned to him and I said, don't you think this is a little bit violent and over the top and maybe a little bit more extreme than it needs to be? And he's like, I think it's in service to and he understands. He's like, no, I think this is in service to the story. And I'm like, okay. Yep. And so he understands that. And I'm okay with that too, providing it isn't just, and this is what, when we were talking about the top 5 horror movies of the 80s, and I put, what was the one that I just watched with Pinhead in it?
Oh, Hellraiser.
I put Hellraiser on there because I'd never seen it before and I had just recently watched it. And at times, Hellraiser has, and really any of the horror movies from the 80s, they have gore in there just to have gore in there, just for shock value. And that was my problem with Rob Zombie and House of a Thousand Corpses, is it's just doing gore for gore purposes, not to advance the story in any way, shape, or form. And so, as you know, if you want to have that in your comics, if you want to have that in your movies or your whatever it is, I mean, I've got it even in the Critical Hit podcast that we're doing now, where our heroes are punching Lovecraftian monsters and Nazis at the same time. That there's a bit of gore in there, but I don't think that it is overly gore-tastic. And I think that all of the horror is there in service of the story. And so as long as it's like that, I really don't have a big problem with it. But, like if you watch Ninja Scroll, for example.
Right. There's a lot of blood. There's a lot of death.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is just for shock value. Maybe I'm wrong. It's been many years since I've seen Ninja Scroll, but I remember watching Ninja Scroll and somebody's doing a samurai slash and then the guy's head slowly lops off and then it's like spraying fountain of blood for 30 seconds.
Spraying Fountain of Blood, by the way, is my band.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah,
but here's the thing. Go back to
covers, but we do them, but in the style of Tool.
Yeah. Going back into the horror comics, I think we're always going to have horror comics, and I always see them just kind of like I was mentioning Westerns. They're kind of that noise in the background, and I always expect that right around September, October, we will see little bumps and spikes as we get into spooky season and people want to have some horror comics out in September and October. But probably for the last 8-10 years, I want to say, it seems like that the horror trend has continued to where the horror comic isn't just relegated to September and October. It is basically year round. And we have comics that are out there that are scary and graphically intense because there is a demand for that stuff. And I'm also, again, okay with that too. I don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, we need to protect the children or anything like that. What I'm saying is I really expect horror to be in its own little Halloween niche, but it is expanded beyond that. And it seems to be that there are more horror comics now than there were years ago. And I don't know if this is like the zombie trend, if this is like the vampire trend, if this is like the Western comics trend, or, what's triggering that. I think certainly I would agree with you, Matthew, that the uncertainty principle of, what's the next 10 years look like? You think we're going to make it 10 years. I think that certainly drives a lot of that existential dread, and people look to horror as maybe that release of that built up tension. Yeah. So I mean, that's fine. Yeah. That's totally fine. There you go. I liked this volume. I think I was looking to see if Image had announced an omnibus collection, because I think I would rather read this all at once. I know you said that you think you'd prefer to read an issue at a time, but I think I would probably say, and again, it's going to be several months before we get to volume 3. I think I would prefer to read this all in one sitting, or, over the course of a weekend. I think is how I would prefer to enjoy the 3 volumes, 12 issues. A little bit here, a little bit there over the weekend, I think would make a good, fun, kind of scary ride. And then you set it aside and you don't have to think about it ever again. So, yeah,
I could see that. And again, I may change my mind when the whole volume is in my hands, but definitely these first 8 issues, I think I would have enjoyed better a month at a time with a break in between, so that I didn't necessarily have great expectations.
Would you rather read Ice Cream Man a month at a time or in big chunks?
A month at a time, absolutely.
Okay. So maybe you're somebody who likes your horror drawn out.
Could be.
I prefer to have it all landed in
Twilight Zone fan. I like for things to be maybe a little long-winded. I like for there to be a point where when you're done, you kind of ruminate on it, and you're like, man, what was that saying? What did that mean?
Well, I'm not sure that there's that in that level of Rod Serling depth in Dark Ride. But if you are somebody that likes to think ill of Disney, then this book is definitely for you, because there is just so much. Let's poke fun at Disney. I don't see them making fun of Knott's Berry Farm. I don't see them making fun of Universal Studios theme park. I don't see them making fun of Six Flags, but both volumes are definitely heavily Devilland is Disneyland, or Disney World, if you want to go that way. And it is definitely not the happiest place on earth. I mean, they go into Club 23 in here and make fun of that. So they've got a lot of really nice digs at Disney in here, and I find that humorous myself. But you have to be maybe somebody that knows a little bit more in depth on Disney, maybe. I'm not saying that you have to, but I'm saying I think that adds a little bit more to the appreciation of the story that's going on. But I would say I would give this a read, but I would read it as all 3 volumes, and not just buy 1 volume and then wait 6 months and buy volume 2. I would get them all 3 at once, I think, is my recommendation.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, it's good. I would say definitely check it out. I don't know if necessarily everybody's going to find this to be their jam, but also, if you don't like it, there's probably a comic you will.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about going to majorspoilers.com, because you can find out all sorts of cool things that are going on in the world of comic books, whether it is upcoming solicitations, whether there's cool merch on the way, new toys. Maybe you're just looking for other reviews of comics or podcasts to look for. We have them over there for you at majorspoilers.com. And don't forget, we can't do this without your support. In fact, 90% of all of our funding come from listeners like you. I know that sounds like NPR, but it's true. We are not somebody who is funded by the government. We get a little bit of money, not a lot, a couple of $100 a month through advertising. So thank you for people who want to listen to the advertising and help us out that way. But but it's really not a lot compared to our growing costs. And so if you enjoy this episode, if you found some value from it, then please head over to patreon.com/major spoilers to find out how you can become a member today and get a shout out right here on the show. Next week on the show, we are going to be looking at, I think it's a general topic next week. So anything goes. Maybe we will maybe we will have my assistant Amy come in and talk to us about some stuff. Why? Because we know that you love comics and we do too. And we will talk with you soon.
Fat the X-ray vision of a Superman. I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, they kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Think about a better way. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I back and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. If I'm stark raving rich like a man of iron, I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the heart cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast. Being shot up in a fun, be in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. Whoa, 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 whoa. What a major spoiler.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.